Okay. Let's pick up just about where we left off. We're in the middle of the סיום מצוות. Let's go back to this one. Hashesh be'aboim u'meya, that's shchita, and shchita is then, it's not like a law, but there's a command, there's a kiyum, which is not what the Rishonim reflect. I would talk about Isaseh. It's not clear at all that there should be a kiyum, whatever. Okay, but say that, but the Ramashita is that it's a bona fide mitzvah because we pointed out last week it's not really incontrovertible, but if you look at what the Ram counts and doesn't count, you get the impression the Ram is not counting dinim. For example, Schoira, Mekro Memka, is based on Mechira, Mekach. And the Ram counts the Mishkolos, and he doesn't count Mekro Memka, the mitzvahs Mekach. So we assume from that the Ram does not count dinim, but he does count shchita, and we'll see as we go, which I mentioned last week. He also counts, after this, he counts Kisi Adam, and then he counts Bedika and Simoni Behemo, Bedika and Simoni Oifos, and Bedika and Simoni Dogim, which also we assume that it's not a din, but it's an amal, it's a bona fide mitzvah with a kiyum. Okay, now we mentioned last week that the Ram doesn't count Chagovim, the Bdikas Chagovim, even though it's a mitzvah in the minyan. So I assume, I said something, I'm going to say something, it's not, even though in certain areas in the world, Chagovim are ingested as normal meat, it's not something which you find throughout civilizations, and maybe for that reason it's not counted. Whatever it is, the Ram did not look at Achilles Chagovim as Hechechias. I'm not sure what the nafkamina is because there's no dinim over here. The Ram is just giving me a list of 60 mitzvahs which he thinks usually happen. Okay, now, next. That is, now we're talking about a Meya Chamishim U'Shtayim. And the next one is Meya Chamishim V'Arba. So there's something called Meya Chamishim V'Shalosh, which is the mitzvah 153, which is the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh. So here's an interesting thing. Since we pointed out, learning Kiddush HaChodesh, that the Rambam Shita is that Cheshbon is also that the community is being Makadesh. It's not something which happens Memela, both in Sefer Mitzvah and Mishnah Torah. So one could have asked, maybe the mitzvah of Kiddush HaChodesh is also a mitzvah because it happens all the time. So the answer is very simple, that the Ram doesn't count mitzvahs which are in the community, but in individuals. And Kiddush HaChodesh is certainly on the community. And that's Ram's Loshen. Umehem mitzvahs mischayvos l'kol ish behechach. And he has a separate category of tzibur, which is not kol ish behechach. So even though the mitzvah Kiddush HaChodesh, according to the Rambam, is echrechios, but it's not on individuals. Now here, the next mitzvah is the mayor, the arba v'chamishim 154. That's a mitzvah of lisbois b'Shabbos. And the Ram doesn't say that noshim are ptuos. So the logical conclusion is that noshim are chayovos and shvis Shabbos. Now, the simple question to ask, isn't this a mitzvah seishes mangomo? Shabbos? So the question is, why noshim chayovos? So the Gemara says in Brachos in Chofam Beis, Elamogovo, Omakor, Zocho B'Shomo, Kol Sheyesh B'Shmira, Yeshno B'Schira. V'hani Noshi Hoil, V'Isnayu B'Shmira, Isnayu B'Schira. Now, Shmira is not the lav of Loisasa Kol Malocha. Shmira is the mitzvah of Tishbos. Okay, how do I know that? Offhand, he said it. The Rambam, Mefurish, at the end. Yeah, one second. Sorry. It's here. It's here. Yeah. There's a paragraph before, a few paragraphs before, I'm not sure how you split up there. Umehem mischayves l'kol ish behechrach b'chol zman u'b'chol mokim u'be'eze inyan sheyiyeh kagoyin hatzitzis, okay, v'hatfilin u'shmira Shabbos. U'chayi is referring to this assay of Kuf Nun Daled. So that's assay Tishbos. So he's calling Shmir Shabbos. So if that's the case, Shomo es Yoim HaShabbos L'Kadshoy is the assay, which the Ram says in Shorish Chi, that it's repeated 12 times in the Torah, is the assay of Tishbos. So the Gemara, the postulate of the Gemara in brachos there, calls yesh b'shmira, yesh b'schira, is that women are chayiv in shmir Shabbos. So you could have imagined that part of from Kiddush, because mitzvah mangromo, we learn out from Shomo that since the chayiv in shmira, the chayiv in schira. So the pasha of the Gemara is the women are mechayiv, are chayiv in Tishbos Shmir Shabbos. The question is why? It's a mitzvah sheis mangroma. However, it is true. Rashi in brachos, they were maskal. Rashi brachos over there, Chofar Beis, they were maskal shmira. interprets that Shmira is the lav of Asiyas Malach. But that will work according to the Rambam. As I tell you, the Rambam quotes Shmir Shabbos as the Asay. I'm not sure, but the Bechad, I'm not interested in the Rashi at all. The emphasis is we don't understand, so it means that women are chayiv in this mitzvah. We don't understand. But the interesting thing is the Rambam in Mishnah Torah. Then when he talks about the mitzvah seishes mangromo, the noshim chayovas, he doesn't mention tishbos. Ram is in, I think, in Hilchos Avodah Zorah. So whatever it is, that's an odd. That's a the Rambam, I think, works with this postulate that wherever there's an asay and a lois asay, b'dova echod, and the women are certainly chayiv. Dova echod, as the Rambam says it shows shishi. It's basically two sides of the same coin. It's like there's a lav of Lasako Malacha, and there's an asay of Tishbois. There's a lav of not to do Malacha and Yontif, and asay of Mikul Kodesh or Shabbos. There's a lav of Inui on Yom Kippur, and there's an asay. So if it's Dova Echod, the same way that women are chayiv in the lav, they're also chayiv in the asay. There's no ptur of mitzvahs asay shazman gromo. In such a case. If I'm not mistaken, that this idea can be found in the Minchas Chinuch and Mishnah Melech. Okay. Now, next, now is the mitzvah HaChomesh B'Chamishim V'Umeya, which is 155, the mitzvah of Kiddush, the Kaddish Shabbos. And Noshim Achayiv in this mitzvah, even though it's a mitzvah seish as mangromo, because the Ram doesn't say here the Noshim Ptuos. And this is the Gemara, that the Gemara says, Elo Marovo, in Brochos Chafo Bebeis, Oma Kor Zocho V'Shomo, Kol Sheyesh V'Shmir Yesh B'Schira. V'ani Noshim Ho V'Snayo B'Shmira, V'Snayo B'Schira. And Zchir is mitzvah Kiddush Hayom. And the Ram also passes that in Hilchos Avodah Zorah Perek Yud Beis Halacha Gimel, Chol mitzvah say שהיא מזמן לזמן, ואינו תדירו, נושם פטוריס, חוץ מקידוש היום וכו'. Okay. Then you have the mitzvah Ashesh v'chamishim umeyo. It's 156, which is Bia Chometz. And the important thing over here, it's very clear in the Rambam that since he doesn't say the Noshe P'turos, the Noshe Mechayev and Bia Chometz. Here is interesting, but it's not really my thing. The question is, why should that be? You see, if you learn that Tashbisu and Bal Yirah go hand in hand, so then you can say this vault. But Reb Chaim learns the Rambam that Tashbisu does not go hand in hand if you accept Reb Chaim. That's why there's Malchus. And it's not a Lavanitic Laseh. Unless you say, whenever there's an Isa say, even without that it goes together with a Lav, it also women are Chayiv. We have to know if that's true. Here also, next, Asher v'chamishim umeya is CP6 Mitzrayim. And the Ram also doesn't say that the mitzvah noshim are p'turos, so women are chayiv in CPC's Mitzrayim, which is very interesting. It doesn't mention Mishnah Torah. We have to understand this. But I think we should leave that for the mitzvah of CPC Mitzrayim. But over here itself, it's very clear what the Ram is doing. Next mitzvah, Lechol Matzah. So that we understand that's the mitzvah of Shmone v'chamishim v'chamesh. No, Shmone v'chamishim u'meya, 158. Lechol Matzah b'leil zeh. Noshim are chayeves in this mitzvah. As mefurish in Psochim, Mem Gimel Mebeis, the Rambam Belezer, Noshim chayeves b'achilas matzah t'vatera. Shene'emar le'sechol of chometz, kol sheyeshnoi b'bal teichal chometz, yeshno b'achilas matzah hekesh. V'ani noshim hol b'yeshno b'bal teichal chometz, yeshno b'kum chomatz. Then we have to make it simple. Atesha v'chamishim v'meya, lishbois v'lish shel Pesach, and that noshim also chayovis. And here also that either it's because it's an asay and a loisa asay b'dova echod, or maybe say that this asay is enough. You have to know. And all the mitzvah of shvisa, the Rambam is saying any one of them that noshim chayovis. Noshim Ptuos. So that's a Teshim v'Chamishim umeya v'Ashishim umeya. Now, next. Hameya v'Ashishim, Achas v'Shishim umeya, which the mitzvah Svius Oimer. And then he says on this one, because it's a mitzvah seshes mangromo. It's not like this famous Ramban in Kiddushin, but that's not really for us to get involved in. This is another interesting thing. I'm just going to talk about it just peripherally. This is the Ram L'Shitosai in Mishnah Torah, in Hilchos Milu B'Sofim. The Ram Shita is that there's a chiyuv in Mitzvah B'Sirayim B'Zman Hazeh, even though we're not makriv the korban oimer. And the Ram definitely holds like that over here, because the Ram doesn't quote it. The Ram quotes it in the Mitzvah Rechios, which in the B'Cholzman. So what do you mean? If there's no Beis HaMikdash, it should have been important. The Ram says all the mitzvahs which are kuchos and kabbonos, there's no chiyuv today. And he says, you're achayiv. So that's like in Mishnah Torah, that if mitzvahs say, that the mitzvah of Sfiras Oimo exists independent of the korban. So this, Emet Hashem, I hope to talk about later. I hope I get to it today. Or let me just tell it to you briefly. I'll tell you what I heard, and we'll just say that this has to be evaluated. We'll evaluate it, Emet Hashem, later or next time, the Rav said over once that he heard from father named Reb Chaim, and he answered this question. This answer is found in the Chedush Agrach Mipir Shmo, and it's called, the piece is called Be'inyan Sfiras Omer, and where the Rav said it over is Bizman Shebeis HaMikdash Kayim. Lu Yitzur, there was an oinus. And he wasn't, the Klal Yisrael was not mak with the oimer. Should that be ma'akiv in the mitzvah svira? Sometimes in the whole portion not. So then he takes a colossal step, and he says, "Hu adin bizman hazeh." Since makriv ma'afreshem bayis, it's just tamanoinis that we want makriv, but it's makriv ma'afreshem bayis. So if you were supposed to be makriv and it was just an oinus, so you have to be sefer. That's what Chaim said. And we'll come bit Hashem later, or next time, whatever, that I remember discussing with the Rav after the Shiur. He told me, I don't understand the Zayda. He's assuming that Bisman Shebeis HaMikdash Kayim, Bisman She'ein Beis HaMikdash is Eino Kaim, it's all the same, which is an illness. And they quoted Rayas that it might not, that it's not the same, but this is what the Rav said of Chaim, that's how the Chiv Siyus Bisman Hazeh works. And the question is, how could Ram say that? Okay, say that. Now, next. Hashtayim v'shishim umeya. That's lishbois b'yom chamishim. That's the mitzvah shvisa on atzeres. And Noshim also chayiv in this mitzvah, doesn't say the potter. Now, the next one. Vasholosh v'shishim umeya. That's the mitzvah of shvisa on Rosh Hashanah, on the Rishon of Chodesh HaShvi. And then is a mitzvah of Arba v'shishim umeya, 164. That's the mitzvah of Inui on Yom Kippur. Lis anois ba'asiri boy. And Noshim also chayobas in this mitzvah. And the question is why in mitzvah will discuss the mitzvah, but that l'chayr is very clear over here that Noshim achayib. Lishbois b'yoim hatzoim, and that's the chiyuv of shvisa on Yom Kippur. The mitzvah say, and Noshim chayobas in this mitzvah, and as we explained. Now, the others is the mitzvah of lishbois ayom rishon Chag HaSukkos, lishvis shmini of Chag HaSukkos, and leisha b'sukkah which nosa b'tuas because mitzvah zman gromo, litol lulav which nosa b'tuas, and mitzvah seisha zman gromo. The Shmo Kol Shofar Rosh Hashanah, Nosh B'tuas, Mitzvah Zman Gromo. Now, we'll discuss one more. Maybe we're going to move over to maybe we'll continue this maybe next week. We'll see, Belinda. But I want to discuss one more, which I think is the problem, probably the most problematic of the whole list. That's Vashtayim V'Shivim Umeya, which is the mitzvah of Lishmoya Mikol Novi Shiyeh B'Chol Do V'Do Im Lo Yosef V'Lo Yigra. The mitzvah of Elov Tishmon. How could the Rambam put the mitzvah of Elov Tishmon in the mitzvah Chrechios? The Rambam Sefer mitzvahs in the Hakdama to Minyan mitzvahs says mufurish that there's no nevuah and novi bisman hazeh. So how could there be a mitzvah of hechrechios, which depends upon novi, that's noeg b'chol zman? The Ram HaKdama to minyan hamitzvos writes the following: V'yadua gam kein shenavua mamelucha kvar nistalku mimenu ad shenoso min avonos she'anachnu machzikim bohem v'yichaper lanu v'yachmeu kmo shi'adnu v'yachzirem lanu kmo she'omar b'chazoros hanavua v'hoya achrei kein eshbachis ruchi al kol boso v'levo b'neichem b'noiseichem v'chulei ulapir pirsum inyan in yonim ho'elu kulam eitzolov anoshim kol mitzasei or leisasei shetia tluya b'korbanos or b'avodos or b'mises bezdin or b'sanhedrin or b'novi u'melech or milchemes mitzvah milchemes rishus lo etztarach loimer bo v'zois ein onu chayovim bo elo b'fnei habayis, because there's no mitzvah of nevuah. Any mitzvah which depends upon nevuah is not noig now. It's only in Beis Hamikdash, when there is a Beis Hamikdash. So this is mamish a kulei pella. How could the Ram say such a thing? What can I say? Ech kmo chokim imeni. Maybe we'll finish this off next. I just wanted to really get into this. Maybe we'll finish this next week. We'll see. We'll never. The Hakadama to minyan hamitzvos. This you'll find in after Shurish Yudalad. V'ato and this aschil lisko kol mitzvah, and now I'm going to mention or write or count of something, each mitzvah in minyan hamitzvos. Lisko lahaskil, okay, kapach lahaskil. Kol mitzvah hamitzvah, hamitzvos, mitzvah, one at a time. V'avayir outside Pirush Hashem. What does that mean? Avayir outside Pirush Hashem. That I'll explain what is this mitzvah. What is it? Without lengthy explanations of the Protei mitzvah, just in general, what is this mitzvah? That's the Shem. And then he says, Kmo sheyoadnu, as we promised, or we maftiach, betchilas ma'amorenu, at the beginning of the minyan hamitzvos, or the Sefer HaMitzvos. Ki zois hi kavonas hamaymo, that this is the purpose of this this thing that he's writing, this discussion of the minyan hamitzvos. The adnu, whether it's in Ibn Iyov or Malnu in Kapach Shif Tachtonu. That's the Kapach says it's Reishis Devorenu. It's a Nagdomu to Sefer HaMitzvos. Okay, Beseda. Kavon Mata. Okay. Now, in Nagdoma, he writes the following. And that's the haftocha. V'im evaya mehem be'es she'eskerem avaya oisoi outside biur Hashem. I'm going to explain what is it. What is the mitzvah? Ad sheyivoda ze atzimui o ashora eze dovo hu v'ze Hashem al eze dovo noifo. You know, what is it? Okay. Now, v'hine hu neos etzli or yofa be'enai, Kapach says, shechaber el hakavona azois teisefes. I'll add some other ideas at tafkidim when I writing these mitzvahs one after the next. V'hu she'im zochri a mitzvah, when I'll mention it with my mentioning of the mitzvah, she'im with an ayin, asher oleho adin, or in Kapach says yeshel oinish mesuyim. The word din means oinish. Im aseh or loisaseh esko onsho. So therefore, I'll be maskir the oinish. Or askir. That's the Kapach is better translation. Askir onsho. V'oimer v'oive alav al zeh yischayev misa or kores or korban kach v'kach. What he means, misa b'dei shemayim, because later on he's talking misa's bezdin. He says mufush. Or korban kach v'kach, and it means that there are many Einshe Korban. There's Oshem Vadai, Oshem Tolui, Chatas Korban Oil V'Yored, and each one's a separate mitzvah. Okay, the Seder. Or Malchus, or Achas Mises Bezdin, which means the before was so Mises Shemayim, Oy Tashlumen. V'chol ma shelo yazko or azkir boy oynish min oinchim teda she'im he mitzvahs mi mitzvahs loisaseh hine hu kamo she'omo ka'eva al mitzvahs melech. A very interesting phrase. It means there's no oynesh. He violates mitzvahs melech. V'ein lanu li'oinshoy. So the two things over here which they focus on. We have to understand what mitzvahs melech is. Where does he get these words from? And we also have to say, he says, Kamo she'amru. Kamo she'amru, he's referring to a chazal that is talking about Keva Mitzmelch. So you have to find some Gemara or some Talmudic or some Midrashic or some source that says Keva Mitzmelch. So those are the two things in order to understand this line. So here, so the first point I would suggest is that we find in other places, the Rambam calls mitzvahs as gzeres melech, and that you find in Shiur Shmini. V'chein, he writes like this: V'chein hachomim kol mitzvah bein aseh loisaseh gzeres melech. So then the Rambam says over there that the word gezerah is a synonym to mitzvah. So since the synonym, so the same way you can say gzeras melech, you can say mitzvahs melech, and if you can say mitzvahs melech, you can say gzeras melech. And the Rambam is just translating the word gzeras melech. But we haven't gotten anywhere because we haven't explained where the Rambam says, Hinei hu k'mo she'omru ki oiva mitzvahs melech. So the interesting thing is that I didn't find anywhere that Chazal said ki oiva mitzvahs melech, but I did find that Chazal did say ki oiva gzeras melech. And I assume that since the Rambam equates the two, and gzeras melech and mitzvahs melech ainu ach, so it's enough to find the gzeras melech, and that's a Tosefta increases. Pek Aleph Halacha Vov. Zeh klal kol mitzvahs loisaseh sheish boi ma'aser loikin aleha es ha'aboyim she'ein bohen ma'aser ein loikin es ha'aboyim v'shar kol loisaseh shebatera harei elu b'azhora ho'ive aleihen ho'ive al harei elu b'azhora ho'ive al gzeras melech. So that's the word. Gzeras melech means he's over on a mitzvah. Loisa says she'ein bo ma'aser, there's no malchus, but it's over on gzeras melech, or gzeras, or mitzvahs melech. Beseder. Now, v'ein lonu li'oinshoi. Beseder. V'omnom mitzvahs aseh kulon, mitzvahs aseh kulon, hine kol mitzvah mehem b'eis chiyuv asiyoso yesh lonu lahaklis b'shoitim hanimne me'asois ad shiomus or ad ya'ase oisei. So all of a sudden he's talking about hitting someone with mitzvahs, what is he talking about? It's like it's a parenthetical remark. We have no idea where it came from or what he's trying to say. So here, let me suggest the following. The Rambam is postulate is based on an assumption that there's no einish for violating a mitzvah say. So therefore the Rambam is answering an assumed question. That is, don't we see that you give an einish on mitzvah say? And that's makna shetete nafshay. And that the Rambam answers without the assumed question that this is not an oynish, but it's a kfir l'kayim mitzvah. And therefore, we hit him only while there's still a possibility to mekayim the mitzvah. But once he's past that time, so that it's not a kfir l'kayim mitzvah, it's an oynish, but there's no oynish by mitzvah. So therefore, nothing happens. However, there's one conclusion that you have to draw, is that the mitzvah, the kofen ala mitzvahs is a deraisa. Because if it's a drabonon, why is the Ram getting involved? There's asking an assumed question. There's another oynish. Says no, it's not an oynish. So if it's a deraisa, so maybe it should have been subsumed under the various oinshim. Kamash Malon, no, that it's not an oynish. So that l'chera is the proof of where the Ram is coming from. Okay. And it's not only a deraisa, it's also a mitzvah on Bezdin. Because if it wouldn't be a mitzvah on Bezdin, you couldn't think. And you would have no hava, meaning that's an oynish. So it's a mitzvah on Bezdin, and maybe you think it's an oynish. Kamash Malon, no, it's a kfir l'kayim mitzvahs. If it wasn't on Bezdin, if it was on a yochid, as I said before, it's a double portion that kfir is not midin oinshe. It's not oinshe Bezdin. But the Ram Shita is that it's on Bezdin, so maybe it's an oynish. The truth is the achronim have a machlokes about this, where the kofen of a mitzvah is on kol yochid v'yochid. That's in the Sivas and Simon Gimel, or it's only on Bezdin. You look at Seis HaChodesh, Choshen M'Shev M'Sivos Siv Kotan Aleph. Okay. So it's interesting. The Ram over here takes it as a double portion, that there's an idea kofen al mitzvahs, it's sugin ksuvas, it's priyas balchoy mitzvah kofen al mitzvahs. The amazing thing is, and and it's a deraisa din, and therefore we thought maybe it's an oynish. That's what he talks about it so much over here. However, in Mishnah Torah, there's no mention at all of kofen al mitzvahs. It's an amazing thing. There is in Eben Ozel, you can look at it in Hilchos Kriyashma, Perek Beis, Halacha Yud Gimel. No. Okay. So, v'omnom mitzvah se kulam hine kol mitzvah mehem v'eis chiyav asiyoso, yesh lonu lahakris b'sheitim hanimne me'aseis ad shiomus. Now, so here he says, that b'sheitim hanimna me'aseisa ad shiomus, או יעשה oiso, או שיעבור זמן החיוב, כמי שעובר, כמו מי שעובר, ולא יושב בסוכה, דרך משל, אין לנו להכניס אחר סוכס, בעבור עוברו לאו, ודזה. So this is Mama Chappelle and Rambam. We don't understand. The daze, l'chera, is indicative of something profound over here. And this l'chera is so portion that if the kfir is the kindness of mitzvah, after sukkahs, there's no kfir. It's like, we don't understand why the Rambam is so repetitive over here and what exactly he wants. Okay. So it's interesting. Here it's Achetete Nafshoy, whereas Malchus there's Oimed, and you certainly can't come to Misa. So it's a very interesting thing. Here it's actually almost. And the some, the Achrinim look in the Rambam, the Pashas is like that in Rambam, that it's you can actually kill. But the others that claim that not in the Rambam here, but that ad is ad v'lo ad b'chlal. So there's something conceptually odd over here. I don't want to really talk about it. I just want to point it out. If the purpose of Hakor is to get him to do the mitzvah, so we understand ad v'lo ad b'chlal, that we want it to be alive because you want to do mitzvahs, but we're trying to to help him make the right decision. But if you're going to kill the guy, the whole thing is odd. Because the purpose is to make him do mitzvahs. If he's dead, he's not going to do any mitzvahs. Now, we're getting to the point here. That maybe we'll get to it. I'm not sure if we'll get to comments yet. Let's do this part. The Gam came, Bezochri HaMitzvos, Shein Rosh Chayovas Behen, Yiu Aseh Lois Aseh, those mitzvahs that women are not chayvin, Oime Bezois Ein Anoshim Chayovas Bo. V'yadua Shein Anoshim Donois V'lo Meidois. So here, Lo Meidois is the Gemara, in Bava Kama Peches that Noshim don't give Edis, Peches on Aleph, Shvuas Lamadom on Aleph, Hilchus Edis, Perites Halacha Beis. But She'ena Noshim Donois, I didn't find anything more foolish. It's L'chera, it's since the apostle to be made, the apostle for Dionis. As the Mishnah Nida, Memtesa Bebeis, Masnisen, Kola Kosher Lodun, Kosher Lahoyit, Viesha Kosher Lahoyit, Vieno Kosher Lodun. So, if you're Apostle Lahoyit, you certainly, you're putting Apostle Lodun. We have to know why. But that's what I was working with. That Noshim lo meidis, lo donos lo meidis. Then v'loi makrivois korban bidehon with the hands. Because only Kohanim are makriv bidehon, and you can't be machshir Kohanis. Now, below the Chomois, Milchemes Rishus, but the conclusion is the Noshim of Milchemes Mitzvah. There is Achreinim talking back and forth of whether Noshim actually fight or not. But if you look at the Rambam, Milchomois, it doesn't say that the mitzvah of whatever, it says Loi Nilchomois, Milchemes Mitzvah. So be the supply lines, that's considered that you're involved in the war, you're fighting. It's very hard to say. So I would assume that in Milchemes Mitzvah they actually would fight. But I don't know. V'chol mitzvah shehi tluye bebezdin or be'edim, it means donois and meidois, oy ba'avoida, because noshim can't be over bidayan, but only kohanim. Oh, b'milchemes rishus lo yitztarech she'oime v'zeis ein anoshim chayoves bo. There's no necessity for it. It's a double portion. The only time you have to mention that the mitzvah is not noig by noshim is in mitzvah seish as mangromo, or there's a separate p'tur noshim, but not in these cases because here's a double portion. Now here, which is the most interesting thing, but we'll save it mitzvah Shem for next week. We do a campaign shakabonis kulon enam kreib melva mikdash. What does the Rambam want? We shall avoid the enam muteres chutz min azor. Mitzvah Shem, we'll pick this up next week.